Part 104. Infinite Script Killing. Author, Guo Shui Gan Xiao. Chapter 1066. In a script world where time is unknown, skyscrapers rise one after another. Medical care and education have been developed to the extreme, and civilization has been highly developed to the extreme in this world, but theocracy has also become an almost irreplaceable necessity. And in the center of the world, a splendid palace stands like a pyramid on the earth. 13 statues of gods that are 100 meters high, like giants in this world, are looking down at the sky and land indifferently. How's it going? Buelyuan stood in front of these 13 statues, with his back to everyone, and no one could clearly see the expression on his face at this moment. Mr. Zhang held a ledger and whispered, 36 people were killed. Only 4 of the second-line team survived. 2 of them were seriously injured. They have been rescued in the hospital, but the effect is not very good. The curse on them is too strong, very difficult to eradicate. Because this war is not a normal scripted world, even if they leave this world, they cannot directly recover from their injuries and can only be treated on the spot. Mr. Zhang glanced at Buelyuan and saw that he didn't speak, so he continued, Meng Changshen was seriously injured, but fortunately he is from the natural system. He has been sent to the country of nature for treatment, so there should be no big problem. Wang Zhang, Das Han, and Chu Yuran, their funerals have been prepared. Why don't you go and see them? Mr. Zhang lowered his voice again. But he saw Buledinluan throwing 2 heads out casually. These are the heads of a pair of men and women. Judging from the skin color and face shape, they are obviously not Chinese. They are the heads of 2 powerful gods from the Western camp, the Rose Goddess and the Phoenix King. Take it, make tributes to them, ask the Archmage to do the ritual for them, and after the first 7 days, I will personally send them to the underworld, and also arrange for their families to be settled. That's it, I'm tired. Buledinluan's voice was cold, without any warmth. His long hair was spread over his shoulders, and on one side was his spear. Zhang Lao originally wanted to persuade a few more words, but when he heard the last 3 words, there were thousands of words in his stomach, but in the end he still couldn't say them out. He picked up the 2 heads on the ground and brought a lot of people with him. Get up and leave. Only after everyone left did Buledinluan raise his head, staring at the 13 statues in front of him with his deep eyes. Is this the result you want to see? Or, this time, you are coming from the west again? What has God won in his hands? Is it a believer? Or a treasure? Or is it just an insignificant nonsense? Buelyuan stood up and raised his hand to hold the spear. The tip of the spear slid along a trajectory in the air, and then slowly pointed at the 13 gods in front of him. However, the stone statue was still a stone statue. There was no movement or response, except for the pair of empty eyes that ignored Buledinluan in front of him. As if that was the silent answer. Buledinluan looked at the still motionless statue, crackling his fingers, but finally let go of his hand, turned around and strode away with the spear in his hand. He didn't know if it was an illusion. As Buelyuan left, the 13 statues behind him seemed to stare at Buelyuan with empty eyes, and their contemptuous eyes were more like looking at a poor reptile. On the other side, Su Tong has left the exhibition. He planned to take a trip to the netherworld while he still had plenty of time. If not for others, I must go there for the fool to see what is going on in the netherworld. As for the exhibition, Lo Jinfang has A Mei in charge, and Gao Zhou and the others still need time to digest the script points in their hands, so Su Tong does not intend to take them with him. It is convenient to enter and exit the netherworld by himself. But before entering the netherworld, Su Tong still needs to go to Mei's house. There are 2 things to do when going to Mei's house. One is to pay homage to the Mai Hua Taoist and find out what the sky is like. On the other hand, it is borrowing treasure. I was too careless last time. I didn't expect that things would be so dangerous, so I didn't think about it. This time was different. Su Tong had a strong feeling in his heart that it might not be that simple, so it would be safer to take more precautions. After calling Meidu in advance, Su Tong took a taxi and went straight to the train station, planning to take a plane to the city. The distance from Xiangzi to Chengdu is still very long. Even if I wanted to fly there, there are too many cameras along the way. Even if it is not captured by the camera, there is no guarantee that it will not be captured by the mobile phone of a passerby. Speaking of which, it seems that since the pixels of mobile phones have become higher and higher, there have been fewer and fewer flow incidents. In order not to cause unnecessary trouble, Su Tong could only buy a plane ticket honestly. Bearing the filthy air in reality, Su Tong got on the plane and headed straight to Chengdu. Before the plane entered Chengdu, Su Tong felt that his second spirit was particularly active. As soon as Su Tong thought about it, he knew that this little fat man must want to eat the hand made by the mother-in-law. If you bear with me a little longer, I'll let you go eat chow chow when it's night. Su Tong comforted softly. He could feel the joy and expectation in Xiaopeng's heart. Perhaps due to the influence of the second spirit, Su Tong's mood improved a lot. As soon as the plane landed at Zhuangliu Airport, Meidu was already waiting for him at the pickup station. Brother Su. As soon as he saw Su Tong, Meidu immediately waved his hand and walked towards Su Tong. Brother Su, I haven't heard from you for a while. Come on, let's go eat hot pot first. Well. In the past, Su Tong might have readily agreed, but now, Su Tong is no longer interested in real food. It's not that he has a taste for it, but that the immortal body is too repulsive to the real world. This was not what he wanted, but it was an unavoidable fact. However, in order not to dampen Meidu's interest, Su Tong still agreed. The two of them were eating hot pot, and Meidu also opened up his chatterbox and talked about a lot of things. For example, the recent situation in Qingcheng Mountain seems to be that Longhu Mountain has now taken over Qingcheng Mountain. Some time ago, under the auspices of the Taoist Association, a return ceremony was held. In fact, Qingcheng Mountain and Longhu Mountain are from the same family, and no one else can find fault with them. It is claimed that Zhang Haisheng has been in retreat, but only a few people know the truth. The Mei family has been living peacefully during this period, and the newly renovated crematorium is also making money every day. It's just that their old man's health has been getting worse and worse recently, and he even suffers from hysteria at night. He says that ghosts walk at night, and his family is not allowed to go out at night. At first everyone in the family was shocked, but when they came back to their senses, they realized that the old man was suffering from hysteria. Sure enough, the old man woke up early the next morning, and he didn't know what he said or did. And it happens every night, making it hard for my family to sleep well recently. After Meidu finished speaking, he looked at Su Tong's expression and almost said, "Can you help me take a look?" But Su Tong felt that this was not hysteria. And hearing what Meidu said, Su Tong always had a strong feeling in his heart. Does it have anything to do with the changes in the underworld? No matter so much, let's go to Mei's house first. If there is no accident, we will call Master tonight and tell them not to go to the netherworld under any circumstances these days. After Su Tong made up his mind, he and Meidu set off to Mei's house. The Mei family had thought of inviting Su Tong as early as when the old man suffered from hysteria, but they could not contact Su Tong and could only wait. Now that Su Tong is here, each one is naturally more enthusiastic than the other. Especially the old man, who never let go of the smile when he saw Su Tong's face, pulling Su Tong to talk and laugh. Even Meidu had never received such treatment. Su Tong took the opportunity to find out Mr. Mei's pulse. Judging from the pulse, there seemed to be no problem at all. Su Tong tried to inject some pure yang energy into the old man, but the strange thing was that this ray of pure yang energy entered and dissipated not long after. Seeing this, Su Tong raised his brows slightly, glanced at the old man with his life icon, and then withdrew his gaze. "Old man, I came here to see you, and I would like to borrow the 3 treasures of the May family." "Ha ha ha, that's something from the Plum Blossom family. If you want to use it, just take it. There's no point in borrowing it or not." Mr. May was really broad-minded. When he handed over all the properties of the Mai Hua line to Su Tong, he didn't even raise an eyebrow at all. Now that Su Tong wanted to borrow the heirloom passed down by Taoist Mai Hua, he did not hesitate at all. He took off a key from his waist and handed it to Su Tong, telling him that the 3 treasures of Plum Blossom were enshrined in the box in the ancestral hall and he could take it away whenever he needed. I chatted with Mr. May for a while. The old man was very talkative. After chatting for half an hour, he got tired and went back to his room to rest. As soon as Mr. May left, May Du's father and uncles hurried forward to ask Su Tong, but they saw that Mr. May had some illness. Su Tong's expression gradually became a little embarrassed, and his expression made everyone in the May family feel tense. Su Tong considered his words for a while, then lowered his voice and said, "The old man is not sick or in trouble, but, the time is coming." When? Although everyone in the May family can understand this term, subconsciously, they are still unwilling to admit it. He even asked stupidly, "When is it coming soon?" Su Tong didn't say anything more, leaving only 4 words, "The deadline is coming." After that, he got up and walked to the ancestral hall. It's not that he doesn't want to save him, but that Mr. May is indeed too old. Even if he is healthy and has no disaster, his lifespan has come to an end. Su Tong told the May family that he also hoped that the May family could get together with the old man as much as possible while the old man was still there, so as not to leave any regrets. Buzz. Pushing open the door of the ancestral hall and looking at the Plum Blossom Taoist portrait hanging in front of him, Su Tong took a deep breath, walked forward and bowed his hands, "Meet the ancestor." As he said this, he glanced up sideways, but saw nothing unusual in the painting, so he took out the key given by Mr. May and opened the iron box under the altar table. When the box was opened, 3 plum blossom-shaped hairpins were seen lying quietly in the box. It is the so-called 3 treasures of plum blossoms: Qingming plum blossom hairpin, Yellow Spring plum blossom hairpin, Evil Lang plum blossom hairpin. Su Tong took out the 3 plum blossom hairpins and was about to put them into the props book when a wisp of breeze swept across his forehead. Plum Blossom Taoist is gone. Infinite script killing. Author, Guo Shui Gan Xiao. Chapter 1067. The painting is still there, but the people in the painting are gone? Su Tong stood up, looked at a blank painting, and couldn't help but glance around. That, Grandmaster. Grandmaster? Are you tired of standing, or have you gone to the toilet? You don't want to stand, your words are loud, or you can just tell me a dream and I will draw a stool for you. This is Su Tong, a man of skill and boldness. Moreover, no matter what Taoist Mai Hua says, he is still the ancestor of his own lineage, otherwise he would have been scared away if it had been anyone else. Unexpectedly, after he finished speaking, he saw layers of ink like ripples on the canvas in front of him. Immediately after, Su Tong heard someone calling him, "Come in." Seeing this, Su Tong raised his eyebrows, his head like a rattle. "If you don't go, what will you do if you can't get in and out?" Su Tong started to act stupid and was stunned. It would be fine if it were somewhere else, but this was a painting by Taoist Plum Blossom. Su Tong didn't know what would happen after entering. Furthermore, he is not afraid of others, and he is an immortal. In reality, there is really no place that he cannot go to. But the problem is that the person he is facing is Plum Blossom Taoist, the founder of all kinds of magic in the world, a ruthless man who made a big fuss in the nether world and escaped without a trace. Such a sinister and ruthless fierce man, he would be arrogant if he said he was not careful. Ha 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 ha, you brat has inherited my plum blossom lineage. Even if you are the current head, I can't bear to see that Mr. May is very thin. How can I attack you? Come in quickly. There was a loud laughter in the painting. As soon as Su Tong thought about it, he simply came up with an idea and jumped into the painting in his own appearance. When this thought fell into the painting, it transformed into Su Tong's appearance. When he looked around, he saw nothing but paleness. Su Tong stepped forward, and his eyes suddenly opened up. The mountain scenery was beautiful, the vegetation was in spring, and plum blossom trees were blooming all over the mountains and plains. Su Tong squinted his eyes and looked around. He felt familiar. After thinking about it carefully, wasn't this Jingcheng Mountain? Sure enough, after walking a few steps along the path, we saw the familiar Plum Blossom Manor. It's just that this Plum Blossom Manor is different from the real one. It's more grand and grand. The door is open, and the two boys have been waiting for a long time. Seeing Su Tong scene coming, the two boys stepped forward to greet them with smiles on their faces. The two boys said in unison, "May Zhou and may you say hello to the headmaster. Please come with me. The eldest master is waiting for you inside." Su Tong looked at the two boys and thought for a moment, "Are you from the May family?" The boy looked at each other and nodded with a smile, "We were unlucky. We were born in troubled times and encountered a rare plague, so we died earlier. Fortunately, the eldest master built the cave again, so that our souls would not fall. In the netherworld, one suffers from the consequences of reincarnation. As expected, no wonder the souls of the May family will not fall into the underworld after death. It turns out that after their death, their souls were sucked into the painting." Su Tong felt relieved and immediately asked the two of them to lead the way. When he walked into Plum Blossom Manor, he saw the plum blossom tree that looked very similar to Mr. May standing in the yard. The plum trees are swaying, and when a wisp of breeze blows, you can hear the leaves dancing with the flowers, and pink plum blossoms are sprinkled down, as if to welcome Su Tong. After walking through the courtyard and arriving in the lobby, Su Tong saw a man holding a fuchsian, wearing a black robe and 3 plum blossom hairpins, sitting cross-legged on a futon, waiting for him with a smile. It's exactly the same as in the painting. Su Tong looked intently and saw that the person in front of him was the immortal in the painting, the Plum Blossom Taoist. "Sit." Taoist Mai Hua swept the dust, and a futon appeared next to him, signaling Su Tong to sit down and chat. After confirming that the ancestor had no ill intentions, Su Tong bowed first. "Junior Su Tong, pay homage to the ancestor." Then he sat upright, looking at his nose, his eyes, and his heart, with a meticulous look, which was completely unlike Su Tong's style. Although it was obvious that Su Tong was being so prudish on purpose, it was hard to find anything wrong with him. "I invite you here for no other reason than to advise you, don't go." Before Su Tong came in, he had imagined what Taoist Mai Hua would say when he saw him, but he didn't expect that he was trying to persuade him not to go to the netherworld. Thinking of this, Su Tong pretended to be stupid and asked specifically, "Where are you going? If you didn't go to the underworld, why would you come to borrow my plum blossom hairpin?" Master Mai Hua had the attitude of someone who had come before, and nothing could be hidden from him. Su Tong had to wonder if this old Taoist had planned it, otherwise why would he put Mai Hua right under his nose? Master Patriarch is really a master of calculations, and his mind is like lightning. I am so impressed by the younger generation. But Master Patriarch, if I have to go. Su Tong first sent a lot of flattery, but then his voice suddenly changed, and he stared straight at the Plum Blossom Taoist in front of him. Taoist Plum Blossom silently stretched out his hand, took off the 3 hairpins on his head, and handed them to Su Tong. "I know you have the means to enter and exit the underworld, and I can't stop you. The souls of the 3 plum hairpins are given to you to help you." Su Tong breathed a sigh of relief and took the 3 plum blossom hairpins with both hands. "Thank you, Patriarch. Go, but after you go, you will have no way out." We are done with each other. From now on, the Plum Blossom lineage will have nothing to do with you. As soon as Taoist Mai Hua said these words, Su Tong was at a loss. Isn't it right that I owe the cause and effect of the Mai Hua lineage? Why did it sound like he owed himself some karma when he came to Taoist Plum Blossom? Su Tong was confused and wanted to ask something else, but Taoist Mai Hua interrupted him first. You will know the cause and effect in the future, go ahead. As he spoke, he waved the whisk in his hand, and the houses, rocks, and even the flowers and plants in front of him were spinning like stirred ink. By the time Su Tong returned to his senses, his thoughts had been thrown out of the picture scroll. 3 rays of fluorescence flew out together with the thought. After these 3 rays of fluorescence circled Su Tong, they fell into the 3 plum blossom hairpins. Then I saw that the plum blossoms on the plum blossom hairpin were entangled together, as if they were alive, entangled together and turned into a hairpin. After Su Tong picked it up, he felt that the plum blossom hairpin was fragrant and had great spirituality. It seems that the plum blossom hairpin left by Taoist Mai Hua is not complete. No wonder when I first saw plum blossom hairpin, the active skills and passive skills on the entry were incomplete. It turned out to be this reason. But why did Mai Hua Taoist say that he owed his own karma? What is the cause and effect between me and the plum blossom Taoist? Speaking of it, it's more like I owe someone something. I took over the plum blossom lineage, but I took a huge advantage. Also, in the last words of Taoist Plum Blossom, it seems that he is more warning himself that there is some serious danger in going to the netherworld. With all kinds of doubts, Su Tong took another look at the portrait of Taoist Mai Hua, and saw that Taoist Mai Hua stood there quietly in the portrait, as if everything just now was like his hallucination. Thank you, Patriarch. Su Tong bowed deeply to the portrait and exited the ancestral hall. Then throw the 3 hairpins into the prop book. Qing Ming, Huan Quan, Xialang Mei Hua Chai, Plum Blossom Hairpin, from Chapter 33 of Volume 7. The carrier is not afraid of yin qi entering the body, nor is he afraid of corpse poison harming the body. Passive Skill 1, No Taboos. The bearer has no taboos and is unobstructed, and can block all the torture tools and evil treasures of the ghosts and gods, such as the soul-catching lock, the soul-killing rod, the life rope, the soul-fixing bell, and so on. Active Skill 1, Mace Yankinua. It consumes 10 script points. After activation, all ghosts cannot see their shadows, and those who are not great gods cannot see their shadows. Duration, 30 minutes. Cooling time, 2 minutes. Active Skill 2, Plum Bone Substitute. Spend the same amount of script points to create a substitute. The substitute possesses 80% of your skills and can absorb more than 50% of your own damage. Cooling time, 24 hours. Duration, 1 hour equals 6,000 script points. Active Skill 3, Plum Opera. Set a plum blossom mark on people, objects, ghosts, etc., so that they can quickly change places. Every time you use the plum blossom mark to move, you need to consume the same amount of script points. The larger the volume and the target of the move, the stronger the target, the more script points are consumed. Active Skill 4, Witch Evil. Spend the same amount of script points and launch a witchcraft attack on the target, which will cause confusion and deviation in the target's perception. The more script points consumed, the stronger the effect. Duration, 300 seconds. Cooling time, none. Note, according to legend, the Plum Blossom Taoist used this item to cause trouble in the underworld and wasted no time in the city, and then escaped without a trace. If there is a technique that can be passed down, it can be used instead of script points. Looking at the explanation of the entry in the props book, Su Tong couldn't help but be shocked by the efficacy of this plum blossom hairpin. No wonder the Plum Blossom Taoist was able to run rampant in the underworld and make a big fuss and get away with it. This plum blossom hairpin seemed to be a nemesis specially designed to deal with evil spirits and ghosts. Even if you encounter someone you can't beat, you can quickly escape without leaving a trace, especially those weird torture instruments and yin treasures of yin cao ghosts and gods, which are completely ineffective. You know, with the help of this thing and the various strange skills of Plum Blossom Taoist, it is estimated that it caused a lot of headaches for the big men in the underworld. With this Plum Blossom hairpin to protect me, there shouldn't be any risk when I go here. At this moment, Su Tong suddenly frowned, and then he heard a rush of footsteps. Brother Su, Brother Su. Mei Du ran over in a panic, grabbed Su Tong, and held Su Tong's arm tightly with both hands. Grandpa, Grandpa can't survive. Take me. Su Tong sighed inwardly and asked Mei Du to lead him there. The old man who was holding his hand and talking and laughing just now was lying on the bed, furious. Su Tong walked to the bed, reached into the quilt, held the old man's wrist, and injected a stream of life essence into the old man's body. Forced to give the old man another breath. Old man, if you have any other wishes you want to say, just say them. Looking at Mr. May's slightly opened eyelids, Su Tong lowered his voice and said. Although Mr. May regained his breath with Su Tong's life essence, his spirit became very dazed. He looked around, then pulled Su Tong to his ear and whispered, "Be careful, the streets are full of people, ghost." You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Infinite Script Killing. Author, Guo Shui Gan Xiao. Chapter 1068. Squeak. The sound of the Suana sounds like complaining or crying. The cry outside the morning hall was sad. The May family's sea-fixing needle finally passed away. No one can deny this old man's achievements. At the transition between the Dharma ending era and the new era, it was he who defied all opinions and led the May family down the mountain, from hiding from the world to joining the world, giving up the inheritance of the Mai Hua lineage, and embracing the embrace of the new world. This kind of wisdom and courage is extraordinary. Ordinary people can do it. Now, although the May family has lost those inheritances, what they can gain is enough material and industry to ensure that future generations will always have enough food and clothing. Even if it were anyone else, I wouldn't dare to say that he could do it better than him. Some local officials were also present in person and expressed some recognition of the old man's contributions over the years. Many high-ranking people in the world came to pay their respects. In addition to representatives of Taoism such as Qing Cheng, Yimei, Mission, Longhu, etc., people from all three religions and 9 streams are also there. Even this white-collar team is extraordinary. Listening to the Suana singing 100 birds pay attendance to the phoenix, Su Tong wanted to join in the fun, but after thinking about it, he decided not to do it. Even though he has taken over the Plum Blossom lineage and is the real leader of the Plum Blossom lineage, this does not change the fact that he comes from the 7th sect. If it were in the past, Su Tong might have joined in the fun. Didn't he like to watch it? Others were disgusted and uncomfortable, but he looked helpless at the same time. But now he is not in the mood. The character of the old man of the May family does not allow him to do this. On the other hand, it seems that after becoming a god, Su Tong became unfamiliar with reality. It is the world that is rejecting me, or in other words, I should not belong to this world. Could it be that this is the reason why the youngest and the others threw themselves into the lunatic asylum? The more Su Tong thought about it, the more troubled he became. Why does Mai Hua Taoist say that he owes his own karma? What did Mr. May mean by his last words before he died? Are the streets full of ghosts? Su Tong awakened his magical power and glanced around. There were some scattered wandering souls around the street, but there was nothing abnormal about them. Seeing that the sky was getting late, the lights of May's house were brightly lit, but the little fat man with the second soul couldn't wait any longer. He jumped up from Su Tong's head and flew into the clouds, flying in the familiar direction. Under the light, on the little fat man's plump face, two small mung bean-like eyes were staring from left to right. But when he came to that familiar place, he didn't see the familiar hand-picking stall. Under the dim street lights, there were familiar streets and a familiar background, but the steaming hand-cooking stall in my memory did not appear. The little fat man looked at the time, squatted on the side of the road, and waited quietly with his head raised. Occasionally some wandering souls would pass by here, but when they saw the little fat man, they would look at him indifferently and then disappear into the darkness in a hurry. As the time gets later and later, the little fat man's mood became worse and worse. I don't know how long it took, but suddenly a man and a woman walked up to the little fat man. "Hey, it's really you. Don't wait here anymore. Let's go quickly. Let's go quickly." The little fat man raised his head and looked at the man and woman in front of him, with a puzzled look on his honest face. It seemed that he was familiar with the man and woman in front of him, but he couldn't remember who they were. Seeing the confusion on the little fat man's face, the woman immediately explained, "Have you forgotten that we used to come here to eat souvenirs? You are my mother-in-law's family, right? We haven't seen you for a while." After hearing what the woman said, the confusion in the little fat man's eyes gradually receded, and he pointed to the open space under the street light in front of him. Seeing Xiaopang's behavior, the woman's expression darkened. "This period is not peaceful. Your mother-in-law was injured by other evil spirits. Come with us and I will take you to see her, okay? Don't stay here. It's very dangerous here." When he heard that his mother-in-law was injured, Xiaopang's eyes instantly turned red, and his plump body stood up suddenly. Maybe it was because the little fat guy was so honest that the couple didn't realize at all how terrifying the murderous aura in the little guy's eyes was, and they didn't even realize that there were signs of thunderclouds starting to build above their heads at this moment. "Hurry up, I'll take you to see your mother-in-law," the woman urged and called Xiaopang. Once he heard about his mother-in-law, most of the murderous look in Xiaopang's eyes dissipated. He nodded and followed the woman. At the same time, Su Tong, who was sitting quietly in the room, suddenly felt strange in his heart and opened his eyelids suspiciously. Little fat man is angry. Su Tong found it strange that the little fat man's temper was just like his appearance. Even if he pinched his little face at will, he would not be angry. Why did he suddenly feel that this kid had murderous intentions? Something weird. Su Tong originally wanted to be distracted and check, but at this time he noticed someone coming outside the door, so he had to give up temporarily, thinking, "Anyway, Xiaopang's strength is no match for the earthly immortal, let him go, but I hope there are no people who are blind. After all, even gods can't stop an honest person from getting angry." He stood up, straightened his clothes, opened the door and saw that the visitors were none other than Taoist masters from Longhu Mountain, led by Taoist Lingxiu. On the other side, the little fat man followed the man and woman into an alley. I don't know where this alley is. I occasionally see some shops, which seem to be selling Buddhist supplies, but these shops have long been closed at this moment, and even the Buddha statues are covered with black cloth. The location became more and more remote as we walked, and gradually we couldn't even see some street lights. The woman walked and said, "During this period, I don't know what happened or where a group of evil spirits came. They are so fierce that we don't dare to go out on the street now for fear of being caught by these evil spirits. Yes, my mother-in-law was injured by these evil spirits. They seem to have seen the ghost money in my mother-in-law's money jar." The man said from the side, "I don't know what my mother-in-law thinks. How can something like Ming Chao be put in a jar?" Hearing the conversation between the man and the woman, Xiaopang's face suddenly showed a bit of self-blame. He didn't expect that his original kindness would actually cause his mother-in-law to be injured. "Little brother, this Minky is a good thing. My mother-in-law was seriously injured. If you still have Minky on your hand, take it out." This thing can heal your mother-in-law's injuries. The woman seemed to have thought of something and asked the little fat man. The little fat man had a simple mind. When he heard that it could heal injuries, he immediately nodded without saying anything. After rummaging around in his belly band pocket, he actually took out a shining gold note in his hand. After seeing this shiny golden money, the eyes of both men and women widened, and the woman stretched out her hand tremblingly, wanting to get it. But Xiao Pang took back the money and said, "Where is my mother-in-law?" "Mother-in-law, front. The woman was stunned for a moment, then hurried forward with Xiao Pang. After the three people passed through the narrow alley, an abandoned and unfinished building appeared in front of them. A row of black shadows were huddled in the corner in front of the unfinished building. "There are too many evil spirits outside now. We don't dare to go out, so we can only hide down here." The woman was afraid that Xiao Pang wouldn't believe it, so she walked in front while explaining. But when Xiao Pang stepped into the unfinished building, the man behind him suddenly grabbed Xiao Pang's wrist. Just wanted to lift him up. But when he tried to lift it up, he found that the innocent-looking chubby boy was terribly heavy. Instead of lifting him up, he waved his arms in displeasure and threw the man away. Ha 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 ha. Looking at the embarrassed appearance of the man being thrown to the ground, there was a burst of harsh ridicule from all around. "Where is my mother-in-law? Where is my mother-in-law?" The chubby boy ignored the laughter, just cooled his face and asked the woman with a swollen little face. The woman felt guilty after being asked by the chubby guy. After taking 2 steps back, she simply ignored him. She turned around and shouted into the darkness behind her, Your Majesty, come out quickly. This kid has ghost money on him." When the words Ming Chao were heard, the laughter in the building suddenly stopped, and a pair of red eyes opened from the darkness. "Ming Chao." Along with the sound of Kanju, the darkness in front of him squirmed, and a huge figure like a reptile slowly walked out of the darkness, moving its body supported by countless palms. It seemed that as he moved around, the world around him seemed to be swallowed up by endless resentment. Yes, it's a ghost note, and it's the largest amount of money. Feeling the terrifying aura coming toward her, the woman was already trembling on the ground. Countless pairs of eyes stared directly at the little fat man in front of them, and a bloody mouth slowly opened. "Give me the money. Mother-in-law. Mother-in-law." The little fat man was not frightened by the scene in front of him, he just kept calling for his mother-in-law. Seeing the anxious look on the little fat man's face, the big-mouthed monster let out a low and ferocious laugh. "Mother-in-law. Ha 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 ha, what mother-in-law? I've eaten them all, why don't you come and look for them in my belly, ha 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 ha." The huge laughter seemed to shatter the unfinished building. Countless sneaky ghosts squirmed with the laughter and started teasing in coordination with the king. "Yes, that old woman smells delicious." The king ate the head first, then the arms, and finally the legs. "No, I ate the legs first, then the body, and finally the head, ha 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 ha." "Did you eat her?" Xiao Pang stared blankly at the huge figure in front of him. 2 drops of liquid like teardrops slid down his plump face. Before they fell to the ground, they turned into a wisp of electric arc and dissipated in the air. "You ate my mother-in-law." The fat on Xiao Pang's body was trembling, and wisps of silver-white arcs overflowed from his face. His angry roars were already full of irrepressible violence, making the fierce ghosts who were still laughing fiercely. The whole body trembled, an unstoppable sense of fear came over, and all the ridicule suddenly stopped. "You deserve to die." Before everyone could understand what was happening, the harmless-looking fat man in front of them was filled with dazzling thunderous fire. In just a moment, there was a fierce explosion in the sky, and a purple-red thunder, it means splitting the sky and falling hard. Snapped. Taoist Ling Xiu, who was drinking tea with Su Tong, was frightened by the thunder, and the teacup in his hand was suddenly crushed to pieces. He looked up and saw the purple-red thunder in the distance, and the immortal face. His muscles couldn't stop twitching. Zixiao Divine Thunder. Infinite Script Killing. Author, Guo Shui Gan Xiao. Chapter 1069. It is easy to imagine how astonishing this thunder is to make someone with such an immortal spirit as Taoist Lingxiu unable to help but curse. The Zixiao Divine Thunder is a thunder method that has been lost for a long time. If Taoist Lingxiu hadn't read enough books, he would hardly be able to recognize it. Su Tong was also surprised, but what surprised him was not Lei Fa, but Xiaopang's anger. He had never seen Xiaopang so angry. He quickly separated a ray of consciousness and transferred it to Xiaopang. From Xiaopang's perspective, Su Tong was also surprised. There was actually a ghost king hiding in that abandoned unfinished building. At this moment, half of the ghost king's body was smashed by the thunder, and black liquid spurted out from the wound. The bloody mouth was now stretched to the ground, letting out a painful wailing sound. He might never have imagined that this one looked meaty, fragrant, and incredibly powerful. Not only is he proficient in the way of thunder, but he also knows the Taoist secret art of Zixiao Divine Thunder. Is there anyone in this world who understands the Zixiao Divine Thunder? Ghost King Tao Mang was wailing in pain, but the little fat man obviously had no intention of stopping. He opened his mouth and spit out the Thunder God's sword, and 3 exquisite thunder drums appeared behind him. His whole body was wrapped in dazzling lightning and he flew down. He swung the long sword in his hand and slashed down. The manic power of thunder and lightning followed the sword like a wild dragon. No. I give up. Looking at the world in front of him that was almost covered in lightning, the Ghost King exuded fear from his bones. Give me my mother-in-law back. Lightning penetrated the Ghost King's chest, and countless electric rays penetrated his body, tearing it apart directly. Ah! The moment his body shattered, a remnant soul of Ghost King Tao Dao flew out of his body and tried to escape into the sewer. But in the eyes of the little fat man, his movements were as slow as a snail. His fat little hand grabbed it by the head and drilled it into the palm of his hand. Just when Xiaopang almost lost his mind and wanted to use lightning to turn this guy into ashes, Su Tong had no choice but to take over Xiaopang's consciousness. After seeing the little fat man's eyes twitching slightly for a few times, Ghost King Tao Wu soon realized that the little fat man in front of him seemed to be a different person, staring at him with cold eyes. Who are you and under whose rule are you? There should not be an evil ghost of the Ghost King's level in the world of ghosts. You are so bold to cross the yin and yang secretly. With just one thing, your soul should be driven away. Although they looked chubby, their completely different looks made Ghost King Tao Wu immediately realize that he had met a true god, and he immediately begged for mercy. God, please forgive me, God, please forgive me. The younger one is a little ghost behind closed doors, accidentally broke into the world of the underworld, and suffered from no way back. Please forgive me. That's nonsense. There are ghosts patrolling the earth. Since you are the Ghost King behind the gate of hell, why can't you go back? I think you are dishonest. No, no, no. There are no more Yinzei. Not long ago, Hades issued an order to the city god to recall all Yinzei. Now there is no one in charge of things at all in Hades. After hearing the words of Ghost King Tao Dao, Su Tong's face remained silent, but his heart was filled with turmoil. Is there really something going on in the underworld? It's nonsense. If that's the case, let me ask you, if you are hiding here to swallow ghosts and disturb yin and yang, are you knowingly breaking the law and seeking death? No, no, no. Ghost King Tao Wu tried his best to explain, excuse me, please spare my life. It's because after there is no evil here, the ghosts are sneaky and have no one to guide them. This is why I lured them here to save them from running around and causing trouble. Did you really eat that old lady selling copycats? No, no, Huang Tianho too, I just lied, I lied to him, and I didn't eat it, just for the treasure money in his hand. The old lady he said is a person of the Yin lineage. She has merit, and I never dare to eat it. After Ghost King Tao Mang said what he said, Su Tong understood clearly. Oh, so you don't dare to eat her, you hurt her, right? Ah, I. Ghost King Tao Mang didn't expect Su Tong to see the flaw in his words so easily. He stammered for a long time before he said, I didn't mean it. Ghost King Tao Mang wanted to defend himself, but Su Tong's consciousness had already left, and the person in front of him was the extremely angry little fat man. Rumble, rumble. Seeing the thunder and lightning in the distance, Taoist Lingxiu couldn't sit still and wanted to take a look. However, Su Tong said at this moment, no need to go, I am asking the second soul to clean up some disasters. The method of the second soul was taught by Taoist Lingxiu, so there was no need to hide this matter from him. But Su Tong didn't mention a word about Tao Wu, the ghost king of the earth. Taoist Lingxiu stared at Su Tong with wide eyes, opened his mouth, and before he could say anything, he saw Su Tong rummaging in his pocket a few times. Then he placed a small notebook on the table. This small notebook was passed down to him by Lao Zhang from the previous script world, only the upper half of it has been returned to its original owner. Taoist Lingxiu originally came to Su Tong to reminisce about the past, but he didn't expect Su Tong to give him such a big surprise. I was so shocked that I didn't even bother to say any kind words. I held this copy of Zixiao Divine Thunder Technique and began to study it carefully. The more I read, the more shocked I became. The content in it was unmistakable, and it was indeed consistent with the incomplete Zixiao Divine Thunder Technique. After finishing reading this book, Taoist Lingxiu suddenly remembered Su Tongglei and hurriedly wanted to thank him. No, wasn't my second soul passed on to me by you? This should have been the cause and effect of returning to the section. The hidden meaning of Su Tong's words was to settle the relationship with Longhu Mountain and no longer O Longhu Mountain. There are too many causes and effects on him now, and he wants to lighten the burden as much as possible. For debts like Longhu Mountain, he should pay back as much as possible. What's more, this itself is the secret method of Longhu Mountain. Using someone else's own secret method to repay one's own debt, is there anything easier than this in the world? Hearing this, Taoist Lingxiu put one hand on his chest and said, great kindness. So, if you have leisure in the future, please invite fellow Taoists to come to Longhu Mountain to let Lingxiu express his friendship as a landlord and say goodbye. Taoist Lingxiu stood up to say goodbye. After Su Tong took 2 symbolic steps, he glanced at his brows and returned to Xiaopang. At this moment, Xiaopang had torn the ghost king Tao Wu to pieces, and then followed the direction of his memory and found the old lady's home. Under the dim night, the owner of the room was already asleep. But there was a faint light flashing in the main room. Xiaopang looked at the light and walked carefully to the door. Through the door, he saw an old woman sitting on the bench. The mother-in-law looked particularly kind under the light, but one arm was injured. Seeing this, Xiaopang stretched out his chubby hand and pushed towards the door hesitantly. Buzz. Grandmother. The door opened, and a childish voice came from outside. I saw a 3 or 4-year-old girl sticking her head out. Grandma. The girl rubbed her eyes and walked to the old woman with bare feet. Grandma, aren't you still asleep? Grandma, you're not sleepy, silly boy, go to bed quickly. The mother-in-law caressed the girl's forehead and asked her to rest quickly. No, I came to see you during the day. My father and brother said that I was hysterical. I didn't want to go back to sleep. I wouldn't be able to find you when I woke up. The girl stepped forward to hug her mother-in-law, but saw a big black bowl next to her mother-in-law's bed. Grandma, why is there a bowl here? Ha ha ha, this bowl is reserved for a little fat man. Little fat man, what do you look like? Yeah, very fat, chubby, and very cute. The mother-in-law looked at the big black bowl on the bed with a little more worry in her eyes. Then mother-in-law, please tell me, the girl was still acting coquettishly. Okay, let me tell you a story, and then go to sleep after I finish speaking. I want it. Looking at the talking and laughing figures in the room, the little fat man stood on the roof, seeming to be thinking about something. Why don't you go see your mother-in-law? Su Tong could feel the entanglement in the little fat man's heart at this moment, the envy, and even a little bit of jealousy. Xiaopang's eyes were dazed for a moment, and then he shook his head. A decisive look appeared on his chubby little face, and he seemed to have made some kind of decision in his heart. Not disturbing is the best protection. When these words came out of Xiaopang's mouth, Su Tong was really surprised. In his heart, Xiaopang had a very high mind, but he still had the kind of simple childish nature. But when he said this, Su Tong suddenly realized that Xiaopang had grown up. I don't know if I'm yang now, I have a cold and a slight fever, ugh. Infinite script killing. Author, Guo Shui Gan Xiao. Chapter 1070. Since ancient times, only after a person dies will his soul be sent to the underworld under the guidance of ghosts. But if I say, I want to go underground to visit in advance, is that okay? Alas, this is definitely not possible. As the saying goes, there is a difference between yin and yang. A living person cannot go to the yin. Even if he reaches the yin, he will not be able to adapt to the environment of the yin, which will cause great harm to himself. But this is the case under normal circumstances, but things are not absolute. There are not a few ways to reach the netherworld through some strange magic. In Taoism, the soul can leave the body and forcefully open up the yin and yang. There are countless folk magics, such as ghost walkers, witches, immortals, etc., all have ways to sneak into the netherworld. In order to find the materials for the Bai Quan pill, the master escaped into the netherworld again and again. It is even more convenient for Su Tong. Through the gap between reality and reality, he can directly enter the underworld. Speaking of which, it seems that when the master created the Baishan cow, he wanted it to be more convenient for entering and exiting the underworld. It was only when Su Tong was ready and used the Shang cow to return home that he discovered that his master, and master's wife were not at home. Not even the goddess was there. Su Tong hurriedly found Mr. May and asked, only to find out that not long after, the master received an edict from Du Ziren, asking him to go there as soon as possible. So we set off early. The corner of Su Tong's mouth twitched. He was really afraid that something might happen, and he hurriedly said, where are the master's wife and the goddess? Why didn't they stop them? Others don't know that there is danger in the underworld, but the master's wife and the goddess must know that it is precisely because of the master's wife that they have been concentrating on running Lo Jinfang during this period. Stop it, you can't stop it? Du Ziren's imperial edict has been sent. Your master has to go no matter what. It's not good for your master wife to come forward, so let the goddess and your master talk. In the end, they still didn't stop them, so they just followed. Went together. Mr. May said with a smile, I guess Master Yu is secretly having fun in her heart. She doesn't have many opportunities to enter the underworld openly. When Su Tong heard this, he lost his temper and thought that he was letting Sun Hao see the peach garden for free. Su Tong nodded, but thought of another thing. By the way, Mr. May, there is one thing. Is there any cause and effect between the Mai Hua Taoist and me, or in other words, is there any cause and effect between the Mai Hua lineage and me? Even Mr. May was confused by the sentence. Su Tong could only tell Mr. May about his meeting with Taoist Mai Hua and the painting left by Taoist Mai Hua. Among them were the words of Taoist Mai Hua. After hearing this, Mr. May's expression gradually became serious, as if he was recalling something carefully. After a moment, Mr. May glanced sideways at Su Tong and shook his head. I don't know, it's just that Taoist Mai Hua is extraordinary. Since he said this, there must be such a reason. Although I am the root of the Mai Hua lineage, but I don't know as much as Taoist Mai Hua. What Mr. May said is true. He is a plum tree blessed by nature, and it is his duty to pass on Yanshu. But other than that, most of what he knows and hears is what the Taoist Mai Hua said, or through himself. What is known from the observation of Plum Blossom Village. So if Taoist Mai Hua didn't tell Su Tongming, then it would be useless to ask him. Seeing that the reason was not asked, Su Tong could only sigh and prepare to leave for Hades. Maybe there would be an answer to this matter in Hades. You are going to the underworld. When Mr. May saw that Su Tong was planning to go to the Yin Cao, he immediately felt that something was wrong, but knowing that he could not stop him, he thought about it again and again, so he took out a piece of wood and handed it to Su Tong. This piece of wood seems inconspicuous, but it is extremely heavy. When Su Tong holds it in his hand, he feels like he is holding a millstone. This is a piece of my tree core. Since you have already taken the plum blossom hairpin, you must know the plum bone substitution technique. If you encounter danger, use this technique to destroy it. At least you will be safe. When Su Tong heard this, his expression changed slightly and he hurriedly returned it. The tree core is so precious and is the foundation of Mei Lao's practice. Even though it is such a small piece, it is also the vital lifeblood for Mei Lao. Take it. Mr. May looked a little sad. Back then, before Taoist Mai Hua made a big fuss, I thought about giving this thing to him, but I hesitated for a moment and didn't say it, which made him completely cut off from the immortal relationship. I regret it every time I think about it. And, now you have to commit suicide. This is your fate. God gave me a chance. If you don't take it, I will feel guilty for the rest of my life. There were 3 people who taught the Dharma in his life, one was Yuji, one was Taoist Mai Hua, and the other was Su Tong. But emotionally, the relationship between Taoist Mai Hua and Mr. May is the deepest. It is not an exaggeration for Mr. May to regard him as his own son, but because of this incident, Mr. May felt a knot in his heart. Now Su Tong is his last descendant. In his opinion, this is the opportunity God gave him. Of course, he also sincerely hoped that Su Tong could come back safely. Seeing that Mr. May had brought his words to this point, Su Tong did not dare to refuse any more. He bowed respectfully and then stood up to leave. There is a shortcut between reality and reality leading to the netherworld. It's just that the route is not easy to walk, and Su Tong still needs to call Maida to lead the way. After passing through a dry forest in the back mountain, a rugged path appeared in front of Su Tong. If Maida hadn't led the way, Su Tong might not have been able to find this route by himself. Going along this road will lead to the underworld Withered Leaves Mountain. If you go east, you will reach the city of death in vain. After finishing speaking, Maida looked at Su Tong. Do you really don't want me to go with you? No, just take care of your home. Su Tong then signaled to Maida that after he entered, he would find a way to hide this road. After all, if there was any turmoil in the underworld, and his home was connected to yin and yang, many people would definitely want to take this road. Maida said that Mr. May was already prepared for this. After Su Tong left, Mr. May planted a row of plum trees on the road to seal the intersection, and then arranged a set of enchantment formations to ensure that outsiders could not enter. Come. After bidding farewell to Maida, Su Tong turned around and walked into the trail. He walked so fast that he was often thousands of meters away in one step. But even so, Su Tong walked this road for more than half an hour before walking out. After leaving the woods, a rotten smell hit me. I looked at the mountains full of skeletons, and in the distance were the hills piled with countless tombs. But from a distance, it looks more like a huge tomb. The underworld is so big. Should we go to the city of Fuse to find the fool first, or should we go to Mount Luofu to find the master and the others? After thinking for a moment, Su Tong planned to go to the city of Fuse first, which was closer, so he would go there to have a look first. It would be best if he could meet a fool. If the fool was not there, he might as well go to Hades to find out. Now that he had made the decision, Su Tong summoned Sun Li, and regardless of any prohibitions, he rode on Sun Li and headed straight to the city of Fuzhe. At the same time Su Tong set off for the city of Fuzhe. The weather in L City showed an unusually heavy rain. The sudden heavy rainfall engulfed the entire city's roads in an instant. Many people have never seen such a heavy rainstorm in their entire lives. Outside the gate of the 5th hospital, security guards used sandbags to build a flood prevention belt, but water continued to pour into the hospital. Rumble, rumble. The thunder and lightning in the sky became more and more dense, making people feel as if a hole had collapsed in the sky. One after another, the rolling thunder struck, frightening people. Boom. Suddenly there was a piercing thunder, which made several nurses squat on the ground in fright. Even the usually carefree female head nurse was frightened to tears by the terrifying thunder. But what makes people feel strange is that in the face of such terrifying extreme weather, the mental patients in the hospital are very quiet. In particular, 3 critically ill patients were sitting on chairs in the corridor, looking at the heavy rain outside, and it was so quiet that it was scary. "What are you doing sitting here?" When the doctor saw these 3 guys, he stepped forward and asked curiously, pointing to the lightning flashing above his head, "Aren't you afraid?" The 3 of them shook their heads, and the older man among them glanced at the doctor. "This is the sky cleaning the world. There are too many ghosts on the ground. If a few thunders fall, the ghosts will be scared away. No, no, this is God crying. The world is about to be in chaos. God is warning you." Another patient spoke up. "That's not right. God has come out. We have to wait for God here." The 3 people had different opinions, but the doctor was amused by them. He thought this might be an opportunity to observe them up close, which might be helpful for his thesis, so he simply sat down and watched the rain with them. "You 3 said that there is a God, but what is God like? If he really appeared, would you make a wish to him?" The doctor tried to strike up a conversation with the 3 of them. But when the 3 of them heard this, they all turned their heads and looked at the doctor, as if they were looking at an idiot. But this did not make the doctor angry. Instead, he felt that this was the reaction that normal people should have. But the next words of a patient started to become weird. "If you want to understand God, it's very simple. You only need one way." "What?" The doctor pushed up his glasses frame and asked curiously. "I saw one patient pointing to the open space in the heavy rain. Do you remember that building?" "Building?" The doctor turned his head. There was no building in the empty space. "Isn't that demolished? The buildings of the future are being demolished. The buildings of the past are still there. If you don't believe me, just walk ahead and see if they are still there." The doctor shook his head and thought it was ridiculous, but he stood up and said, "Okay, I'll go over and have a look. Do you want to come with me?" The 3 of them shook their heads in unison. Seeing this, the doctor looked at the open space and didn't know what was going on. A strong strange feeling came over him, as if there was a call calling him to come over. Is there really a building? When this thought came up, the doctor was also startled. He patted his forehead and thought that he had been too tired recently, so he started thinking wildly. He simply ignored the 3 of them and was about to go back to his office when the sound of the rainstorm in his ears suddenly disappeared. Buzz. The sound of the iron door being pushed open reached the doctor's ears, and the sound of metal friction made the hair on his body stand up. A cool breeze carrying the pungent smell of blood made all the muscles in his body tremble uncontrollably. The doctor suddenly raised his head and saw the 3 mental patients in the distance prostrate on the ground like devout believers. Whoa! In a trance, a melodious horn sound rippled in his ears, causing the doctor to feel an unprecedented panic. His consciousness seemed to have traveled thousands of years ago in an instant, and saw his past and present lives. It was just that at that time, I was tied to the altar with 5 flowers and was thrown into the Yangtze River as people worshipped me. The destined sacrifice, the outcome of the past life and this life was already predestined thousands of years ago. What's this? Seeing himself being thrown into the Yangtze River, the doctor finally couldn't help but take a step back. Only when he stepped back did he realize that he had been standing outside an iron door without knowing it. The iron door in front of him slowly opened, and one foot slowly walked out of the iron door. The moment the skinny foot stepped out of the iron door, the muscles on the instep gradually became fuller. Before the foot landed, black boots were already covering it. If you want to see the gods, you must first offer sacrifices to the gods. This is basic courtesy. The hoarse voice echoed in the empty corridor. The doctor's pupils tightened, and he turned around and wanted to escape, but as soon as he turned around, his body fell weakly to the ground. My hands, my feet. The doctor who fell to the ground realized that not only was he naked, but his body was aging rapidly. Be grateful to time. Your time will merge with God's time and become a part of God. That is eternity. Behind the iron gate, a black robe hung down on the ground. A figure slowly stepped out of the iron gate. Wherever he passed, time began to distort around him. The doctor's eyes widened as he watched his body quickly turn into gravel. Perhaps it was not until the moment of death that he finally realized that he was the so-called sacrifice. Old guy, it's time to find our children. A hand under the robe slowly raised, and time gradually solidified into crystal fragments on his fingertips. As the number of fragments increased, a mirror appeared in front of the robe. Looking at the thin face in the mirror, the man's deep eyes gradually reflected a figure riding on a giant eagle. I found you. I have a headache and nausea. I have to go to bed early tonight and won't update anymore. Sorry everyone, good night. Oh, I sat up in shock when I was dying, but I still have to shout, please give me a vote. Ah. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Infinite Script Killing. Author, Guo Shui Gan Xiao. Chapter 1071. Seeing the city of vain death approaching, Su Tong shuddered for no reason. He glanced around in confusion, but could not find the root cause. The final doubt was placed on the city in front of him. This city, which had stood tall in the city of wasted death for who knows how many years, was now so terrifyingly silent that Su Tong did not dare to ride the thunderbolt. After landing on the ground, he took out the plum blossom hairpin and kept it above his head. I saw a plum blossom blooming on the plum blossom hairpin, exuding a quiet fragrance. After this fragrance wrapped around Su Tong's body, Su Tong's figure became blurred. The fragrance of plum blossoms. It consumes 10 script points. After activation, all ghosts, and gods cannot see their form, and those who are not great gods cannot see their shadow. With Mei Huachai's protection, Su Tong went straight to the gate of Wuzi City, but he didn't realize it until he reached Wuzi City. The gate to the city of Fuzi was actually opened. The huge city gate is open like this, and you can see at a glance the gate of Hades' mansion at the end of the empty street inside. Really empty. He originally thought that the fool's painting for him might be some kind of revelation. Unexpectedly, the empty underworld in the painting actually appeared. Go and have a look first. Su Tong took a deep breath and walked into the city of wasted death. As soon as he walked in, Su Tong felt uncomfortable all over, as if he had walked into the body of a decayed old man. The city of wasted death in front of him seemed to be turned into ashes at any time and disappeared into the dust of history. This was completely different from the city of wasted death in his impression. The blue-black bricks and stones on the ground were originally black and shiny, but now they were dull. I remember that the last time I came here, the city of Wuzi was full of ghosts, but now all these ghosts are gone. Are they hidden? But there are tens of thousands of ghosts, where can they hide? Su Tong suddenly stopped, as if he thought of something, and suddenly turned his head to look at the land behind him. Yes, they are hiding, but they are not hiding in a certain place, but in time. Just like the youngest and the others, they are hiding in another time. It's just different from the youngest and the others. The youngest and the others just hid one building, but now someone has hidden the entire vast underworld into time. Who can have such great means? Thinking of this, Su Tong looked in the direction of the mountain. But at this moment, there was no trace of the huge mountain, and Su Tong couldn't even see the vague outline. He took out the painting the fool gave him and looked at the blurry mountains in the painting. Could it be Fujun? This guess shocked Su Tong. But apart from Fujun, I can't think of anyone else who has the ability to hide thousands of ghosts in the entire underworld to another time. But why did Mr. Fu do this? Su Tong thought about it, and 4 words came to his mind involuntarily: Twilight of the Gods. The first time I heard these 4 words, it was from the mouth of the old magic stick, and the second time was when Taoist Mai Hua reminded me. Su Tong always felt that this matter might still be far away, but it was not until this moment that he truly realized that Ragnarok was not far away from him, and even, the dusk was close. After a brief period of confusion, Su Tong soon realized that this might also be an opportunity for him. After all, there is no one in the vast underworld now, so I might be able to take advantage of this opportunity. There are original books of life and death in the underworld, as well as evil mirrors that are rumored to reflect the past and present lives, and even the truth of all things, and even the rumored 6 paths of reincarnation. These things are things that you can't see even if you want to see them. Come on, since the Lord has hidden the entire Hades in time, the fool should be among them. You don't have to worry about safety. Why not take advantage of the opportunity to swim around and see clearly? Thinking of this, Su Tong quickened his pace and ran straight to the gate of Hades. Only when he walked in did Su Tong realize that the Hades in front of him had become dilapidated, with broken walls and a huge hole in the door as if someone had smashed it. A deep claw mark was torn on a palace wall. The huge mark was shocking. Is this the past or the future? How could Hades become like this one day? The more Su Tong looked, the more frightened he became. He couldn't imagine how anyone could directly penetrate a place like Hades. Stepping into the gate of Hades, Su Tong walked step by step and broke a tile. He leaned down and picked up the broken tile. He found that it was a piece of blue-black with patterns carved on it. Su Tong tried to throw it into the prop book to see what material the tile was made of. Qingying Gang, abandoned. It is said that there is a mountain in the west of Hades called Qingying Mountain. The mountain is indestructible and can be made of materials and polished. As long as there is enough yin qi, it can be immortal for thousands of years and indestructible for 10,000 years. Looking at the entries in the props book, Su Tong felt even heavier. This Hades palace is mostly made of this material. It is immortal for thousands of years and indestructible for 10,000 years. However, the extremely strong Qingying Gang has been eroded by time and has become extremely fragile. I am afraid that the Hades palace in front of me has been destroyed. Thinking of this, Su Tong frowned and continued walking deeper. Just as he thought, the Hades in front of him had been destroyed long ago, with all broken walls and rubble scattered everywhere. At this time, a magnificent hall appeared in front of them. Even though one side of the hall had collapsed and been damaged, just standing in front of the hall could still make people feel the majesty of the palace. There are 3 palaces on each side of the main hall, and a plaque is hung on each palace. Su Tong took a closer look and saw that the plagues of the 3 palaces on the left read Tianko, Diko, and Minko respectively. On the plagues on the right, there are the words Shen Cao, Human Cao, and Ghost Cao respectively. It turns out that this is the 6-part Gong Cao. Seeing this, Su Tong suddenly realized that the duty of Liuko was to promptly deliver official documents and reports from the underworld to the Emperor Yin, the Emperor Fendu. At the same time, most of the approval edicts issued by Emperor Fengdu were sent out by them. His former immediate boss, Yinshan Division, was under the control of Luan Gongko. That's right. Let's take a look at the latest approval document. Maybe we can find some clues in it. Su Tong glanced around and immediately headed towards the Renko Palace. As soon as I walked into the main hall, a biting cold wind blew, and I saw rows of bookshelves like mountains on both sides of the main hall. Between the bookshelves, there is only a row of paths for people to pass sideways. At this time, Su Tong noticed something pressed under the collapsed bookshelf. He went over to take a look and saw that they were some strange-looking ghosts. These little ghosts were no more than the size of a palm, and they had already turned to stone when they were pressed under the bookshelf. Su Tong blew lightly, and then they disappeared into ashes and disappeared without a trace. This Ren Cao has to deal with more than tens of millions of documents every day, and it is impossible to handle it by relying on those evil spirits. So there will be more imps to assist. Walking along the main road of the hall, Su Tong came to the desk at the head of the hall. It was already covered with a thick layer of ash. Su Tong waved his hand and swept away the ashes, revealing the official document underneath. Su Tong tried to reach out and pick up one and read it carefully. After all, the official document on it should be from that day. Maybe he could find some clues through the time on the official document. For example, is the underworld at this moment in the past or the future? However, the moment Su Tong's hand touched the official document, he saw that the official document on the desk turned into smoke and dust. When the smoke and dust dissipated, 4 words were clearly written under the empty desk: Twilight of the Gods, all worlds are extinguished. 8 words. 8 words were engraved on the desk, which seemed to be a warning to him across time, and also confirmed part of his conjecture. Sure enough, the underworld in front of him was not the real underworld. But it takes place in the future after Ragnarok. What exactly is Ragnarok? Can the Lord really escape by doing this? Many doubts appeared in Su Tong's mind. It looks like there are no clues here. It is obviously a bit impossible to find clues here. This place has been abandoned for too long, and time has erased all traces here. If you want to figure out what happened, you need to think of other ways. Thinking of this, Su Tong suddenly thought of being a fool. Nahi Bridge. Yes, time may have changed a lot, but Nahi Bridge should still be there. Thinking of this, Su Tong turned around and walked out of the hall, heading towards the Nahi Bridge, which connected the 6 paths of reincarnation. In the back of Hades. Generally speaking, after the soul of the deceased has completed his sentence in the 18 hells, he will be sent to Nahi Bridge and drink a bowl of menpo soup, and then he will be reincarnated in the 6 realms of reincarnation. Cross the road of no return and walk past the Weeping Cliff. Along the way, Su Tong saw many shocking scenes. The eternal fire hell has been extinguished, and a huge hole appears in the center, penetrating the 18 levels of hell. A corpse lay on the ruins of the palace. The corpse had decomposed and only the bones remained. But even so, Su Tong still felt as small as the first ant standing in front of this corpse. He also saw some coffins of dead gods. These coffins were not 4.5 pieces as people thought, but were made entirely of black metal. Su Tong tried knocking twice and found that the coffins were surprisingly heavy. The inside of the coffin is covered with precise lines of talismans. Su Tong glanced over and found that it was Yanshu. Moreover, it is a very ancient Yanshu. Su Tong originally copied it using the spirit-seeking and bone-searching technique, but the result was a failure. The lines of the talisman in it have lost their original spirituality, and even if they were restored and copied, they could not get the essence of it. However, these coffins were quite good, and Su Tong was not polite and threw them directly into the prop book. The entry results given in the prop booklet are all question marks. Fortunately, he didn't have much hope for these coffins, so he took them back and gave them to Gaozhou, just in time to give his son a full moon wine gift. This gift is a bit down to earth, but he will probably like it. Until we came to the Nahi Bridge, which allowed thousands of dead souls to walk across it, was now broken into two pieces. There was a very large pot next to the bridge. Su Tong estimated that this was what Meng Po used to make porridge. He rummaged around and found nothing special. Su Tong took a look and felt that this pot was quite good. When he knocked it, he heard a very deep sound. It must be a treasure if it lasts for thousands of years. In line with the idea of always bringing some souvenirs home when traveling, Su Tong simply put the pot into the prop book. At first glance, the prop book could still recognize it, and it turned out to be a high-end prop card. Meng Soup Pot. Infinite Script Killing. Author, Guo Shui Gan Xiao. Chapter 1072. Meng Soup Pot. Rumor has it that this is the pot where Po Meng made soup. It is said that no matter what kind of ingredients are used, it will be especially delicious when made in this pot. Passive Skill 1, Forget Worry. Drink the soup from the pot and forget about your worries. After drinking 3 bowls, you will be carefree from now on. Passive Skill 2, Dream Recall. There are many tears on the road to Huanquan, joys and sorrows, separation and separation, love, hate and obsession. A pipa and a suana play, and I smile back to my dream and sigh. Active Skill 1, Wash Life. After consuming Mengpo soup, you will have a chance to wash away your destiny. It consumes 3000 script points. Note, after eating this bowl of Mengpo soup, you will still be a worker in the next life. Oh, Chef God card. Su Tong looked at the entries in the props book and felt that if he used this pot to cook in the future, it would taste delicious. Put this pot away. Su Tong stood up and walked to the Nahi Bridge. The bridge in front of him was broken. If he wanted to cross the river, he had to fly over it. But when he stepped on the Nahi Bridge, Su Tong felt that his body was particularly heavy, as if there was a force restraining oneself. This is not because of the bridge, but because of the Huangchuan River under the bridge. However, the Huangchuan water rolling away under the bridge is like weak water, with a huge suction force. Let alone flying over it, even getting close will be affected. Otherwise, how could a bridge be built here? Don't forget that when I picked up Lilith last time, I had a personal experience of the power of the Huangchuan River. Just looking at it for a while almost drowned me in the water. Now that he is a god, Su Tong doesn't dare to be careless about this river. After looking at the distance of the broken bridge, Su Tong picked up a stone and tried to throw it directly. As a result, the stone flew less than 1 meter away and was pulled directly into the river by a force. He knew how powerful he was, but even the stones couldn't fly across, which showed that crossing the river was not an easy task. The fool gave me the painting, and there must be a reason why I came to this place, but what exactly did the fool want to tell me? Thinking of this, Su Tong involuntarily looked at the broken bridge in front of him, and vaguely remembered that when he was channeling into a dream, the fool let him climb on the bridge to watch, and then pushed himself off the bridge. Could it be? Su Tong looked at the broken bridge, stepped forward step by step, came to the fool's position, and then stuck his head out to look under the bridge. There were dots of fluorescent lights flashing on the water. When Su Tong looked at the Huangchuan River, a strong sense of dizziness hit him, causing him to immediately turn his head. However, thinking that a fool would never harm him, Su Tong took a deep breath, activated all the Minjian Kimen and Buddha eyes to their maximum strength, and looked towards the water again. Suddenly, countless fragmented memories appeared in front of Su Tong with the waves on the water. The forgotten river reflects the 3 lives and 3 worlds. It is said that only the ghosts who drink Menpo soup can cross the Nahi Bridge. It is precisely because the influence of the Huangchuan River is so strong that ordinary ghosts who do not drink Menpo soup will be unable to bear it and lose their souls when they walk across the bridge. But Su Tong did not see his past life, but instead saw countless fragmented memory scenes. Some of the scenes have long been forgotten by me, or even have no memory at all, but there are also many scenes that I remember. For example, he saw Chang Wuju. When I saw this guy being imprisoned in the hospital, his twisted face looked like a rabid dog that wanted to take a bite out of anyone. After seeing the ferocity and malice in this boy's eyes when he put his hand into the fat girl's arms, of course there was also the scene of him putting him down and performing a small operation on him. But these are not what he wants to see. Instead, as the memories ripple on the river, it becomes more and more confusing. Su Tong only felt that his forehead was aching faintly, and he thought of the fool again in a daze. Hey hey! The silly smile became brighter and brighter. When those concerned eyes looked at him, Su Tong moved forward by mistake. Not good. But by the time he came to his senses, it was already too late. Plop! The cold river water swallowed Su Tong instantly. In an instant, countless memories appeared in front of him. They formed a huge palm and pulled Su Tong to sink. This river of forgetfulness reflects the cause and effect of memory, but once the spirit is lost in it, it will be pulled in by the river and will never be reincarnated. The old Taoist's voice sounded in Su Tong's ears, and when he looked sideways, it was the words that the old Taoist pointed at the Wangchuan River to explain to everyone when he picked up Lilith last time. Su Tong's spirit was shaken. Thinking of this, he immediately recited the Nirvana Sutra silently. A little golden light appeared for a moment. Su Tong's thoughts turned, split and reorganized, and an image of Buddha was condensed in his mind to protect his mind. At the same time, Su Tong struggled upwards with all his strength, trying to rush out of the river. But it's useless. This Wangchuan River is one of the three major rivers in the underworld, along with the Yellow Spring and the Sea of Blood. Even if the body of an immortal falls into it, it is not easy to struggle out. The more Su Tong struggled, the faster he sank. He wanted to use Dharma to form the world, but before his thoughts could leave his body, he was almost frozen by the Wangchuan River. Am I going to die here? No, the fool helps me every time. There must be a reason why he asked me to do this. But the fool never says these things with his mouth, he only does them. Then if the idiot wants me to see the Lethe River, what exactly does he want me to see? Seeing that he couldn't get up for a while, Su Tong simply calmed down. Gradually, a silly smile appeared on his face, as if he was imitating the thinking of a fool. But after a while, Su Tong failed. He can imitate many people, and his superb acting skills are destined to make him look like whatever he learns. Whether he is playing the role of a court official, the young man of a wealthy family, or the general who dominates the battlefield, he can bring his own thinking into the role. Middle. But he just couldn't play the fool. Because the fool's way of thinking is too simple, so simple that you can't imagine it. If you give him a piece of candy casually, he may hide it and won't eat it until it goes bad. He just looks at it and feels it is sweet every day. Su Tong's attempt to get into the fool's mind is purely wishful thinking. But although he couldn't get into the fool's mind, Su Tong could smell a bit of the fool's character. Since he pushed me down, it means there must be something down here. I can't be a fool, but I can always believe in fools. Thinking of this, Su Tong simply stopped struggling and plunged into the water instead. He wanted to see what the fool wanted him to see. It is difficult to struggle out of the Wangchuan River, but it is easy to sink. Su Tong's heart sank, and the world in front of him became darker and darker. Is this my son? In the chaotic darkness, a deep sigh came out. There was no joy in the voice, but full of worry. A vague memory appeared in front of Su Tong. With the faint light, he could see a haggard face looking at him silently. This man's face is somewhat similar to his own, especially his eyes and nose. The two are almost carved from the same mold. Don't blame me, child. This is your first gift, and it is also the last gift I give you. It is hidden in you. As long as you call it, it will take you wherever you want to go place. The man held a dark red card in his hand and waved it in front of him. Remember the name of this card, Heavenly Prisoner. As the memory began to fragment, before Su Tong could recover, a vague figure quietly appeared in front of him in the darkness. Su Tong was startled at first. He did not expect that there would be a person under the Wangchuan River. But then his heart trembled suddenly, and an ominous premonition came over him. No, 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 no! Su Tong screamed in his heart, waving his arms crazily and rushing towards the figure in front of him. Finally he saw clearly. Under the dark river bed, a figure with a silly smile stood there, his hands spread out, and two iron ropes wrapped around his arms. One end of the chain was wrapped around two huge stone sculptures, keeping him in this position. Madness. Su Tong thought about many possibilities, but he never thought that a fool would sink himself under the Wangchuan River and let time pass by, turning him into a stone sculpture. What exactly do you want from me? Tell me, why do you want to sink yourself here and wait for me? Su Tong's heart seemed to be torn apart, and his ferocious face seemed to be roaring, but at this time, a gap quietly opened in the fool's body. Click. There was a cracking sound. Then spider web-like cracks began to spread from the fool's body. Su Tong was even more stunned when he saw this, but he could only watch the cracks getting bigger and bigger. At this moment, wisps of memory fragments emerged from the fool's split chest and turned into pictures under the influence of the forgotten river. Su Tong looked at the figure of the fool in the picture. He knelt down in front of a Buddha statue with a silly smile on his face, and his heart was about to break. Amitabha, the great emperor will personally exile the underworld to the future for tens of thousands of years. But if you want to tell him the truth, you must let yourself live until that time, otherwise the answer you told in advance will be useless, but that is 10,000 years later, it is too difficult. 10,000 years? How long is it? The fool raised his head and looked to his side. Su Tong saw a long-lost figure, the fat monk from before. Why is he here? Su Tong had doubts in his heart. After he climbed to the top of Yushan Mountain and came back, he had never seen the fat monk again. But why did he appear in this place? The fat monk looked troubled and pointed to the stone lotus platform in the pond outside. Look, that lotus platform has been around since I came here. Now, less than a few thousand years have passed, and the lotus platform is about to be destroyed, damaged by wear and tear. The fat monk seemed to want to use this method to tell the fool how difficult it was to endure tens of thousands of years. Seeing this, the fool scratched his head and suddenly grinned. I'll wait for him for 10,000 years. As the memory in front of him shattered, the next memory appeared in front of Su Tong. Plop! Two large rocks wrapped with iron chains were thrown into the Wangchuan River one after another, causing the underworld gangsters in the distance to curse. But the fool didn't care about this, he smiled at them, and after giving his belongings to these unknown shady people, he actually jumped into the Wangchuan River under everyone's surprised and shocked eyes. Infinite Script Killing. Author, Guo Shui Gan Xiao. Chapter 1074. How long is 10,000 years? In the vicissitudes of life, the sun and the moon alternate, and there are countless difficulties and obstacles. Some people would struggle to survive for 50 years, let alone survive for tens of thousands of years in the underworld. The fool knew that with his strength, it was impossible to last for such a long time. Moreover, it would not take tens of thousands of years. Ragnarok was coming soon. If he could not tell Su Tong the answer before Ragnarok, everything would be meaningless. So this is destined to be an endless loop that cannot be solved. But the fool gave the answer to this question in another way. Just like that poem, I would like to be transformed into a stone bridge and be blown by the wind for 500 years, the sun for 500 years, the rain for 500 years. He did it, and Su Tong's heart was broken. But now he couldn't even hug the fool. He could only watch the fool's body cracking apart little by little. As large bubbles flew out, countless fragmented memories began to appear in his sight. Su Tong looked at the memory picture in front of him, not daring to miss it for a moment, for fear that missing the answer would make the fool's sacrifice meaningless. As the scenes flashed by, Su Tong's eye circles were already red and swollen. The picture shows the fool's birth, abandonment, and adoption, until the relative who adopted him passed away. That was the hardest time, he cried, which made people feel heartbroken. And among the few memories left, they are all of the time the fool spent with himself. It's not that the fool doesn't remember those bad memories, it's that he didn't take those things to heart from the beginning. Such as being driven away by children setting off cannons during the New Year, such as huddled in a corner shivering on winter nights, being beaten up by passers-by as if they were thieves, etc. In comparison, the fool's mind was so simple that only the scene of him and Su Tong being together remained. Happy, warm, and simple to the point of simplicity, it is better than the sensational bad jokes in countless movies. But when Su Tong looked at these pictures, it felt like there was a sharp knife in his heart, scraping away at his heart inch by inch. Until the end of the scene, Su Tong saw that the fool had moved a mirror from somewhere. He faced the mirror in front of him and sat behind the table. There were only a few yellowed steamed buns on the table, but the fool was eating the yellowed steamed buns while drinking from a wine flask. There was not a single word in the whole process, just the comical performance of a fool sticking out his tongue after taking a sip of wine. But Su Tong couldn't laugh. He stared anxiously at the memory in front of him, but until the memory faded away, the fool still made no other unnecessary moves. Just eating and drinking, this operation made Su Tong anxious and angry, but he still couldn't figure out what answer the fool was going to give him. Speak, speak, even if you say one word. Su Tong could only watch the fool eat helplessly, but he still didn't understand what kind of news the fool was conveying to him. Seeing the memory gradually blurring under the wash of the river, Su Tong tried his best to remember every detail. Until the fool in front of him turned into powder along with the broken memories and the Wangchuan River, Su Tong felt that his chest was about to explode. Ah, you idiot! Su Tong stretched out his hand to grab the powder in front of him. Anger, unwillingness, and countless negative emotions emerged in his heart. It's my fault, I didn't protect him well. But now he didn't even understand the last message the fool left for him. This kind of frustration made him want to go crazy. The pure yang energy in his body surged for a moment. The angrier he became, the faster the pure yang thoughts in his mind split. The truth, I only want brothers. Buzz. In the originally clear and traceless Wangchuan River, a black mist suddenly appeared, and then the entire water surface began to boil and stir. Give me back the idiot! Give me back! Accompanied by an extremely angry roar, Su Tong was like a hysterical beast, holding Emoran in both hands and waving it desperately. For a moment, black and white stirred the Wangchuan River in front of him. A huge whirlpool formed on the river surface. Su Tong slashed with all his strength, trying to split the time in front of him and go back to before the fool jumped into the river. Since this is the future, the fool's death is not the absolute end. Maybe if I go back in time, I can save the fool. It's just that this time has been too long. Su Tong slashed desperately, trying to reverse the flow of time, but the result was not what he wanted. He can borrow time from the future, but he cannot move forward to split the past. No matter how hard he tries, he can only fall short in the end. But Su Tong didn't care about this. He just waved the sword in his hand, wanting to vent all the depression and anger in his heart. But he didn't notice at all that as he vented wildly, the time around him began to become more and more chaotic. Time has rolled up a storm, even the forgotten river is flowing backwards. In a daze, Su Tong seemed to see a hand coming from the chaotic flow of time. Fool, fool. Su Tong looked at the blurry figure, his confused consciousness just grabbing at the other person. as his palms passed through the chaotic storm of time and space. Even though Su Tong had the body of an immortal, he instinctively wanted to take his hand back. It hurt so much, the mania of time and space was like the blade of time, but it made his palms wither and age in the blink of an eye. Fortunately, at this moment, a palm with a black leather glove poked out from the chaos. The moment the palms clasped together, an indescribable force actually restored time to calm. Lin gave Su Tong the palm gradually returns to its original appearance. At this moment, Su Tong felt a chill rush up his arm, making him tremble. In an instant, all his thoughts were suppressed by the other party's power. I don't know why you called me a fool, but I don't like this title. The figures in the storm gradually approached. The familiar voice suddenly gave Su Tong a creepy feeling in his heart. He was so familiar with this voice that he instinctively wanted to pull his hand out of the chaos. But the black glove was tightly clasped on Su Tong's wrist like a poisonous snake. At the same time, the other party's other palm slowly opened, and 5 fingers gently patted the surroundings, just lightly. In a flash, the time, which was already out of control and frantic around him, suddenly became quiet like a tamed rabbit. Time is a terrible toy. Even the gods dare not say that they can be above time. My child, if you want to deal with time, you are still a little immature. He had a black cloak, long silver gray hair, and a face that he had seen since he was a child. It was the first time he talked to him at such a close distance. You're out. When Su Tong called out to the other party, the ink in his hand drew a line of black and white sword energy, and struck the old magic stick head-on. However, the sword energy crossed the old magic stick's face and passed directly from his body, but it did little harm to the old magic stick. The old magic stick was very happy when he saw this, and looked at Su Tong with a meaningful look. Silly boy, that's not how time is used. As he spoke, the magic stick waved his fingers, and crystal gems appeared on his fingertips. These gems were the product of time solidification. When Su Tong saw this, he couldn't help but feel panic in his heart. His understanding of time definitely surpassed that of most players, but in front of the magic stick, he was as immature as a 3-year-old child. The time that I couldn't freeze despite my best efforts was just something that came easily in the hands of the magic stick. I saw the magic stick gently waving his palm, and in an instant all time around him stopped, and even the Wangchuan River was frozen. Come on, I'll take you to see something good. After saying this, the old magic stick didn't care about Su Tong's ugly face, and just pulled him up, stepping on the water of the Wangchuan River, crossing the Wangchuan River, and came to the other end of the Nahi Bridge. I saw a huge round stone door standing there. The stone gate is huge, covering tens of thousands of square meters, like an unattainable mountain standing in front of him. Su Tong looked intently and saw a woman above, wearing a jade crown, flying into the sky and earth surrounded by gods. At the same time, under the woman's feet, there are gods, humans, Shura, hell, hungry ghosts, animals, etc., representing the 6 paths of reincarnation. Is this Empress Hutu? Su Tong curiously looked at the door in front of him and thought, is this the rumored 6 paths of reincarnation? I have gained a lot of experience. But what he was thinking about now was how to escape from the old magic stick. The strength of this old magic stick is too terrifying. He is no match for his current situation, but it will not be easy to escape. Right now, he could only choose to follow him temporarily to figure out what this guy was going to do. I saw the old magic stick walking in front of the gate of reincarnation and gently stroking the traces of decay and time on the door in front of me. Child, do you know that this is reincarnation, the core of the entire underworld, and the end of the 3 realms? Humans, gods, immortals, ghosts, even those Asuras can be reincarnated as humans through this place. This is the greatest mercy in heaven and earth, but also the cruelest mercy. Cruel. Su Tong looked at the old magician in front of him in confusion. At this moment, he had to make peace with him, and at the same time find a way to escape for himself. At this time, his heart moved, and he remembered the scene of seeing his father in the Wangchuan River. By the way, there's that thing too. Thinking of this, Su Tong tried to recite the name of the scarlet prop card silently in his heart. Along with his silent recitation, Su Tong soon felt a faint force in his chest responding to him. I sensed it, Su Tong secretly rejoiced in his heart. The old magic stick did not notice anything strange about Su Tong and only said, "If you have been to Kunlun, you will naturally know that there are all the answers there." Kunlun again. Su Tong couldn't help but think of the fear in Mei's eyes when she mentioned Kunlun. So he tried to ask the old magic stick, shouldn't that be the residence of gods, the world of gods? The world of gods. The old magic stick looked at him with a smile, stretched out his palm and patted his shoulder. I hope you can still say this after you go. After that, the old magic stick took out a bronze pocket watch from his pocket and looked at the time on the pocket watch. This guy has turned the entire Hades into this state. It is really disappointing. As he spoke, the old magic stick looked at Su Tong. My child, do you still remember what I said when we parted last time? I had a fever for 2 days and 2 nights. During the period when the temperature was as high as 39.8 degrees Celsius, I took Anax tablets. Although it quickly cooled down the temperature and relieved the pain, it caused huge side effects, including rash all over my body, a rapid decline in immunity, and my ears were swollen like those of Tathagata Buddha. Fortunately, I got over it and will resume updating today. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Infinite Script Killing. Author, Guo Shui Gan Xiao. Chapter 1075. Su Tong's face froze. He not only remembered it, but also vividly remembered it. You are my first sacrifice. I will use your blood to dye my murals red, and use your soul to compose a war song for me. Every time he thought of this sentence, Su Tong couldn't help but feel a chill in his heart. Seeing Su Tong's embarrassed expression, the old magic stick raised the corner of his mouth and stretched out a finger towards Su Tong. In an instant, Su Tong felt that the time around him began to freeze rapidly. The terrifying divine power, like absolute authority, suppressed all his thoughts. The so-called immortal body was just craft paper slightly stronger than toilet paper in front of him. I saw the old magic stick slowly stretching out a finger. Your father has hidden something in you, let me help you find it. The moment his fingers reached out, the skin and flesh on Su Tong's body began to separate, and the heartbreaking pain made Su Tong's pupils tremble. Don't worry, it will be soon, soon. The old magic stick gently comforted Su Tong, but his fingers were grabbing at Su Tong's body at an extremely fast speed. However, the moment his hand touched Su Tong's body, golden light quickly burst out from Su Tong's body, and the bright and dazzling light made the old magic stick's fingers unable to take a step deeper as if they were stuck on a stone. Name of Sage. Title Skill, Appearance. After activating this title, you will be immune to all damage and exempt from all negative conditions. Although the old magic stick claims to be the Lord of Time, he is still not omniscient and omnipotent. It seems that he did not expect Su Tong to have this skill. But he didn't care, this kind of ability couldn't last for a moment at all. Let's see how long you can last. What the old magic stick didn't expect was that while Su Tong was activating the manifestation, he was also reciting another name silently in his heart. As he recited silently, the burning feeling in his chest was about to come out. Faced with the disdain in the old magic stick's eyes, Su Tong could only said, "Then have you heard of the invincible hearthstone?" The old magician was stunned. He had never heard of an invincible hearthstone. But soon, the old magician knew what the invincible hearthstone was. The moment Su Tonghua's voice fell, a dazzling red light suddenly appeared on his chest, and a vermilion prop card slowly appeared from his chest. Seeing this prop card, the old magician's expression suddenly changed. Only then did he realize why Su Tong appeared in the Wangchuan River. This prop is exactly what Su Tong's father hid in his own bloodline. It burns with vermilion blood light and is the unique light of inherited props. And the way to wake it up is to gently call its name, Heavenly Prisoner. Along with Su Tong's shouts, the function of this prop card is already clear to the heart without putting it in the prop book. This is a heritage connected by blood. Seeing the prop card flashing with red blood on Su Tong's chest, the old magician's face turned ugly, because this prop card brought back many unpleasant memories for him. With the thought in his mind, he quickly accelerated the time around him, causing the holy light on Su Tong to disappear almost instantly. But the acceleration of time does not affect the results. Wrapped in a bright red light, Su Tong's figure also disappeared without a trace in front of the old magic stick. So much so that the old magician's hand was empty. Looking at the disappearing figure in front of him, the old magician grimaced and said to himself, "What is this? Invincible Hearthstone? I wanted to play for a while longer, it's really annoying." After saying that, the old magic stick took back his hand disapprovingly, looked at the closed 6 paths of reincarnation in front of him, and suddenly raised his palm to slap it. Suddenly the entire Hades was trembling, and in an instant, countless ancient beings in thousands of worlds were awakened. Woo! The sound of the horn resounded throughout the land, and in different time and space, one after another sacrifices began. The screams of women and children, the cries of children. In order to protect his wife and children, the man was cut in half by the sacrificial guards. He refused to let go until he died. In the end, he was pushed down into the sacrificial pit along with his body and children. On the roadside of the street, rows of slaves were pressed to the ground. The butcher held an axe and cut off their spines, splitting the ribs on the chest to expose the organs under the chest on both sides. Slaughter, sacrifice, wails of agony. Human heads were piled up to form a high tower, and the heads of girls were tumbling in the huge bronze cauldron. Those limbs with flesh shaved off were made into exquisite musical instruments, playing creepy music. The blood served as a dye, dyeing the priest's robes red, and even composing magnificent and splendid murals for him. Not enough, more. The god's eyes penetrated time and space. In the ancient and historyless past, his followers were massacred, and tens of thousands of creatures were sacrificed to him every moment. This long-lost pleasure made him dance with excitement, and then his eyes squinted as he looked sideways at the desolate and scorched earth-like world behind him. I saw some vague figures walking in the distance. Every step of these figures made people feel fear. Their extremely violent divine power turned the eternal green bricks on the ground into powder. They are gods, long and ancient gods. Their names once resounded throughout the earth, and even in their era, those so-called righteous gods were just ants. But they were eventually overthrown by the later gods and suppressed in the depths of hell for tens of thousands of years. After finally getting free, he ended up trapped in this eternally desolate land. Ha 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 ha, old friends, you are so angry when you wake up. Seeing the appearance of these figures, even a powerful god of death who calls himself the Time Lord like Shen Guan had a look of fear on his face. Unless the youngest of these ancient beings comes forward, even he would not dare to suppress them. Seeing these huge figures without making a sound, the magic stick silently raised his palms. "Remember, you owe me a favor." As he spoke, a space-time storm emerged from his palm, and the huge storm swallowed up these figures in an instant. Then the magic stick took a look at the stone carvings on the 6 paths of reincarnation gate behind him, and then took a deep look at the figure of the woman on the gate, let out a sigh, turned around and disappeared into the storm of time and space. At the same time, Su Tong's figure appeared on a desolate sandbank. Plop. He didn't care where he was at the moment, he just sat down on the ground and started breathing heavily. This guy, the old magic stick, actually came out. I wonder if this guy, the youngest, also came out. If the old magic stick is a real lunatic, the youngest one is different. He is an abyss that cannot be penetrated to the bottom. He has grown up under the eyes of the youngest since he was a child, but this guy always makes him feel bottomless. Moreover, the old magic stick has always been afraid of the youngest, which shows that the youngest's strength is by no means inferior to the old magic stick. If these two guys walked out of the hospital, Su Tong could not imagine how much trouble these two guys would cause. Just what message did the fool convey to me? Thinking of the fool, Su Tong's heart inevitably hurt. It's just that after venting, he can calm down more now. He never thinks that fools are really stupid. On the contrary, this guy is a man of great wisdom. As the saying goes, great wisdom is like foolishness. A fool is not stupid, he just sees things in the world too clearly. Therefore, since he wanted to pass on the so-called answer to himself, his actions must have deep meaning. It's just that my mind is a little confused now, and it will be difficult to figure it out for a while, so I can only stop thinking about it for the time being, and then think about it carefully when my mood really calms down. Then Su Tong opened his palm, and saw the prop card shining with vermilion light appearing in his palm. This is the prop card I gave him. It has been hidden deep in his bloodline. If he hadn't learned the name of this prop card, he might not have been able to find it. Su Tong included it in his prop book. Heavenly Prisoner inherited props cannot be traded. Passive skill 1, Unbounded. The holder can travel through the world at will and can easily sense the existence of the door. Passive skill 2, Divine Blessing. The holder is no longer harmed by any space-based skills. Passive skill 3, Bloodline Inheritance. This prop is a bloodline inheritance item. When the user activates the active skill of this prop, there is no consumption. Active skill 1, All worlds are like prisoners. You can travel through any world at will. Cooling time, 1 hour. Note, although I have never hugged you, this is my greatest love for you, prisoner. Compared with the power of this prop card, Su Tong cared more about the line of small words under the prop card. Although he could no longer remember his father's appearance at the moment, Su Tong felt extremely warm in his heart when he read this message. Putting away the prop book, Su Tong didn't know where he was now. Seeing the surrounding mountains and forests, I didn't know where I had traveled through time. The cooling time of 10,000 worlds prisoner takes an hour, so I can only go outside and take a look at it now. The wild roads in the mountains and forests are a completely undeveloped world. At least Su Tong's immortal body didn't feel repelled at all here. Instead, he felt extremely comfortable. He couldn't help but take a deep breath. He felt that the air in this place was so good. I don't know how long I walked before I heard a shout from behind me. "Fellow Taoist, please stay." Su Tong was stunned, and when he looked back, he saw a middle-aged man with disheveled hair chasing him quickly. Seeing this, Su Tong slowed down his pace. After the other party caught up with him, he saw this man bowing his head to Su Tong with a smile. Then he looked Su Tong up and down and said, "Taoist friendship means freedom and ease, walking thousands of miles, and being carefree in the mountains and forests. I believe that Taoist friends have wonderful roots of good karma, and I dare to ask if you want to go to Kunlun Mountain to cultivate immortality. Is it such a coincidence?" Su Tong's eyelids twitched, and he shuttled through space at will in a hurry. He didn't know where he was traveling to. He looked at the Taoist in front of him and thought, just in time, since we are here, we might as well go to the so-called Kunlun to see what kind of place it is. Thinking of this, Su Tong nodded with a smile and said, "Yes. Ha ha ha, how about we walk together in this way, and there will be multiple companions to talk to on the way. I haven't asked my Taoist friends yet how to call them." As soon as Su Tong thought about it, he pointed to the plum blossom hairpin on his head. "I don't dare, Master Mai Hua. You can just call me Master Mai Hua. Su Tong thought to himself, anyway, I inherited the lineage of Plum Blossom, so I can use the title of Plum Blossom Taoist for my own use. It turns out to be fellow Taoist Mei. Poor Taoist Shen Gongbeo, how polite you are. Hey, fellow Taoist Mei, why are you leaving? Wait for me, wait for me. Shen Gongbeo had just finished speaking, but before he could speak, he saw Su Tongren running 1,000 meters away. I wanted to add more updates, but my body couldn't bear it. I went to bed early, got up early and updated early. I'll have to wait until I can catch my breath. Sorry, today's update is gone. Please take care of yourself. Infinite Script Killing. Author, Guo Shui Gan Xiao. Chapter 1076. This heavenly prisoner's ability to travel across all realms is indeed strong enough, and he directly brought me into the long ago era of Shang. Su Tong found that without the constraints of the script, he felt like he was jumping out of the chessboard here. Perhaps this is a gift from his father to himself. Even if he has not become a so-called player, with this item card, he can ignore the constraints of the gods and travel around the world at will. Of course, this understanding can also be reversed, such as at this moment. Thinking of this, Su Tong looked at Shen Gongbeo standing aside and rolled his eyes. Bad luck. I never dreamed that I would meet this unlucky guy just walking around. The words fellow Taoist, please stay made Su Tong feel uncomfortable all over. He had no choice but to say that the power of these words was too great, which made him feel a little frightened. He even once wondered if this sentence was the way to activate some kind of magic. Just like Beishan Cow, it looked polite but actually concealed murderous intent. So he stopped running and accepted his fate and walked with this guy. He wouldn't be able to bear this guy chasing after him, shouting while chasing him. Fellow Taoist Mei, I see that you have a pure yang body, pure and flawless. I wonder if you have a teacher. No. I'm just a casual cultivator with no family or section. Oh, that fellow Taoist is practicing on that mountain. Does he have a fixed cave? Wandering around the world, calling home all over the world. Ah ha 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 ha, how wonderful, how wonderful. Fellow Taoist Mei is indeed a true immortal of Xiaoao. I am so envious of this poor Taoist. Shen Gongbeo pinched his long beard, laughed loudly, and then changed his words. I have a junior sister, Fairy Yuehua, who has a pure yin body. If her Taoist friends don't give up, I will go and make peace with her. If we achieve happiness and form a Taoist couple, then the yin and yang will be harmonious. Wouldn't it be beautiful? Su Tong's mouth twitched. He had only known Shen Gongbeo for a day, and this guy had almost sold off all the colors of his junior sister's underwear. Looking at this guy's talk, Su Tong was suspicious. Fairy Yuehua was true, but she was not Shen Gongbeo's junior sister. I'm afraid this guy took advantage of the information gap and went around to make matchmakers. It's his credit for success, or he made a lot of friends. Learned. But don't mention it, with Shen Gongbeo's character, it's no wonder he has so many friends. But having said that, he was also curious as to whether there was really a dispute between the intercepting cult and the explanation cult, and whether he could meet the rumored master of Tongtian cult during this trip. Of course, it turned out that he was overthinking it. After Su Tong asked tentatively, he found out that there was no such person as the leader of Tongtian. However, Sanking does exist, but at this moment Sanking is not as respected as the ancestor of immortality in later generations. At this moment, Sanking calls himself Sanking Taoist, but not many people in the world know about it. Shen Gongbeo also heard about it accidentally and found their preaching ideas very interesting, so he wanted to listen to it. This actually made Su Tong feel a little excited. Sanking, that is the highest god of Taoism in the future, and I can only be called a fairy in front of them. If I can get a few words of advice from these three bosses, it may be of great help to my strength. Thinking of this, Su Tong inevitably started to feel excited. While the two of them were talking, they had already walked out of the mountains and forests into the secular world. At the beginning, things were relatively peaceful and calm. But not long after walking, Su Tong discovered that hundreds of ghosts walk at night, and the ghost country is in full swing. It's all childish. Looking around, there are countless wandering ghosts in the plains, mountains, and forests. There are too many of these lonely ghosts, and sometimes they are so dark that they are like locusts crossing the border, forming a huge haze, swaying toward the east. When the two of them arrived in the town, Su Tong originally wanted to find something to eat after entering and taste the special delicacies here. As soon as he entered the city, he discovered that this era was more bloody and cruel than he thought. To sum it up in one sentence, gods and demons dance together, and it is difficult to distinguish between humans and ghosts. On the streets, statues of gods can be seen everywhere, and priests carrying various exquisite instruments are walking in the streets and alleys. A group of slaves were pushed into the square. Fight! Cut! Cut! When the people around him saw this scene, they gathered around and shouted as if they were crazy. The so-called cutting here means beheading, but here it is more of a ritual. These are ordinary members of the Dong Ai people. Shen Gongbeo saw Su Tong's strange expression, but he misunderstood. Despicable slaves cannot be sent to the Yin capital. Only the tribal leaders and nobles of Dong Ai can be sent to the Yin capital as tribute to the gods. Hearing Shen Gongbeo's words, Su Tong became even more confused and asked him in a low voice, "Is this kind of sacrifice very common?" "Common? It's about right. Where do you want to look specifically?" Shen Gongbeo then raised his fingers and started counting for Su Tong. There are not that many remote places like this. They are nothing more than shrines, demonstrations, altars, and ridges. The so-called shrine, altar, and ridge are the four ways of offering sacrifices. The community is dedicated to grain farming. It indicates that the sacrificial tribe is prosperous. The altar is dedicated to the sun. Gan is a sacrifice to the moon. Each kind of sacrifice has different methods, but there is only one tribute, people. The only difference may be the identities of these people. The more precious the identities, the higher the standards of the sacrifices. Therefore, the word sacrifice has the so-called saying of holding meat in one's hands. Shen Gongbeo got excited and said to Su Tong, "But these are small scenes. There is no way to compare with the big scenes in Yindu. The sacrifices in Yindu are more spectacular. Killing tens of thousands of people at one time can attract the gods from all over the world to bless them." Even though it was Su Tong, when he heard this scene, he couldn't help but feel numb. Where did so many people come from to make sacrifices? Well, sometimes when the sacrifices are low, the lives of nobles must be used to make up for it. And the more precious the life, the more valuable the sacrifice, especially the noble girls. Shen Gongbeo was completely unaware of the coolness in Su Tong's eyes. Instead, he told him about several noble girls who had been sacrificed by King Shang in recent years. At this time, the sacrificial ceremony in the square had begun. Heads were chopped off one by one, and the heads were placed neatly aside, and then the residents of the entire town began to dance as if they were crazy. At this moment, the figure of a god actually appeared in the sky above the city. The huge god's image was like a giant holding up the sky. Amidst the carnival and dancing of everyone, it sprinkled crystal rain and dew with satisfaction. It's just that Su Tong no longer has the patience to watch anymore. This kind of bloody scene makes him feel very uncomfortable. Originally, he wanted to taste the delicacies and specialties here, but now he has no appetite at all. After leaving the town, Su Tong casually shot a bison in the mountains and forests, then took out the meng soup pot and prepared to cook the meat. Su Tong has all the skills of Buddhism, Taoism, martial arts, and even some Confucianism. But only when it comes to cooking, Well, it's simply an indescribable pain, as if he was born without the cells to cook. Speaking of this matter, it has already become a pain point in Su Tong's heart. Fortunately, Shen Gongbeo was good at this. Seeing Su Tong staring at the pot and not knowing what to do for a moment, he simply took over the chef's task and started to help Su Tong handle it. The cook Ding did not dare to say anything about the buffalo, but his movements were quick and clean, and he could handle the bison cleanly in just 3 or 5 strokes. I happened to have some seasonings on hand. Although Shen Gongbeo's cooking skills were average, with the addition of seasonings and the blessing of the Meng soup pot, the aroma soon became more and more fragrant. Even Shen Gongbeo didn't expect that his cooking skills could be so good. The two of them sat in the forest and feasted, and Su Tong took out the wine pot Shensha. The wine in sinking sand is originally Mia's Wang's century-old wine, but now it is placed in the vessel sinking sand. After being blessed by its passive skills and settling, the taste becomes even more unique. This wine. Shen Gongbeo slowly tasted it, and the more he tasted it, the more sad his face became. It feels like I'm not drinking, but more like taking medicine. The more I drink, the more bitter it becomes. It's not that the wine is bad, but the taste of the wine is too strange. When a glass of wine enters the throat, one feels the wine is strong, mellow, and thick. After careful aftertaste, at the last moment it enters the stomach, it drifts away like flying sand without a trace. When I think about it again, it is gone. Smell. It feels more like a miserable life, with life, old age, illness, and death, and an unpredictable fate. Only when the doom has come will one be willing to repent, but it is too late. The two of them drank and ate meat, and finally drank several bowls of steaming beef soup. The two of them ate all the meat and soup. After a trip to the forest lawn, the passive effect of Meng soup pot also appeared. Passive skill 1, forget worry. Drink the soup from the pot and forget about your worries. After drinking 3 bowls, you will be carefree from now on. Su Tong's mood gradually relaxed, and he gradually came out of the haze of the fool. Instead, his thoughts suddenly became extraordinarily light. The fool is not dead. It doesn't matter that the past cannot be changed and the future cannot be trusted. The emperor deliberately changed the time of the underworld. The tampering happened 10,000 years later, but that is not the only ending, it is just one of the endings, which means that I still have a chance to save the fool. In other words, this itself is a hint from Fajun to himself. Junior sister, junior sister. While Su Tong was thinking about this, Shen Gongbeo was already talking in his sleep. This guy drank a lot of wine, and now he lay down on the ground and fell asleep. Just looking at his appearance, it looked more like he had triggered another passive of Meng Tanguo, Meng Hui. Passive skill 2, Dream Recall. There are many tears on the road to Huanquan, joys and sorrows, separation and separation, love, hate and obsession. A pipa and a suana play, and I smile back to my dream and sigh. But seeing Shen Gongbeo sleeping so soundly, Su Tong's mind moved, and a thought flew out of his eyebrows, floating on Shen Gongbeo's body, and in a moment, it escaped into Shen Gongbeo's eyebrows. Dream Walk. The skill Dream Walk was activated, and Su Tong's thought suddenly appeared in Shen Gongbeo's dream.